Haverhill is a city undergoing revitalization. This once vibrant shoe town that came on hard times is now finding new vitality. Haverhill is becoming a center of cultural and economic activity. The recent designation of the Haverhill Riverfront Cultural District is propelling our efforts to attract artists, businesses, and tourists as we celebrate Haverhill's art, culture, and history, as well as its promising future. Haverhill is also initiating major redevelopment, including the upcoming conversion of a long-vacant downtown building to bring river access, restaurants, and a UMass Lowell satellite campus that will catapult the city's ensuing rebirth. In the face of all this hope and optimism, poverty and crime in some of Haverhill's neighborhoods are weighing down the city's revitalization efforts. There are many families who live in these neighborhoods and struggle with these issues. One such neighborhood is highlighted in red and referred to as the city center in research by Neighborhood Scout that reports 758 crimes per square mile in this area, as compared to much lower rates in other areas of the city and state. Similarly, local newspapers report Haverhill being the 15th most violent community in Massachusetts. Research shows that effective early childhood education is a key lever for ending cycles of poverty and crime.
Everything we know in economics says the return on investment in people, especially very young people, very, very high. We have a big emphasis now on potholes, infrastructure it's called. What happens for most of these proposed projects is when they're evaluated, they either have low or zero rates of return. There are many projects out there, but few have the rate of return of early childhood investments, offering 10% annual rate of return. So for the same dollars, you can actually invest by training teachers and training children. But what comes out of it is a reduction in crime, the promotion of schooling, the fact that we're going to get a more skilled workforce in the future. This is not just speculation. I represent no lobby group. It's a piece of analytical work. And so in that sense, this should be a favored project by anybody.
Montessori early childhood programs are producing results in urban districts across the country. Believing that Montessori can transform struggling neighborhoods in Haverhill too, Urban Village Montessori founders launched the school at Trinity Church in the heart of this city center in March of 2015. The school's vision was to bring together children that are reflective of Haverhill's rich diversity, so all could come together to learn and to see the wonderful potential of the Acre neighborhood. Our school distinguishes itself by serving at least 50% of our students from low-income families and by providing Montessori education, which is typically only accessible to more affluent families. The Montessori curriculum promotes student engagement, concentration, independence, and self-direction. Especially designed Montessori materials allow students to develop complex skills that are not typically taught to children in this age group. Now, just over a year after it first opens its doors, Urban Village Montessori is joining the innovative Wildflower network of Montessori schools that was initiated by Sep Kamva, head of the Social Computing Group at MIT's Media Lab. The Wildflower Network is an ecosystem of decentralized Montessori microschools. It is an open-source approach to Montessori learning developed at the MIT Media Lab. The Wildflower model aims to be an experiment in a new learning environment, blurring the boundaries between homeschooling and institutional schooling, between scientists and teachers, between schools and the neighborhoods around them. As a result of the mutual aims of Urban Village Montessori and Wildflower, Urban Village has decided to become a Wildflower school and will be rebranding itself Marigold Montessori School. This is a great opportunity to connect Haverhill with an innovative initiative that connects education and technology while strengthening neighborhoods.
Jane Bearden, I'm the rector here, and I want to welcome you all to Trinity Church. about a year ago now, Janet and I had been spending about 3 months having some conversations around preschool children and lower elementary children and upper elementary children, and what can we do to improve the academic and social and all sorts of ways for the kids in our community. And Janet came up with telling me about Montessori, and she convinced me it was a wonderful program. I have been absolutely amazed and pleased with what has happened here in the last year. We had 3 students a year ago, we've got 20 I think now. So that's a wonderful achievement. You are more than welcome to walk around and see the church. Certainly go up and see and let Janet take you up and show you the classrooms. That's been a joint effort all the way around. So welcome very much to Trinity, and this is the Montessori Day.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Janet Beejan, and my co-head of school, Linda Malborn, and I would like to thank you for joining us to celebrate our new name and our connection to the Wildflower Network. This would not have been possible without the support of many of you. We are especially grateful to our primary partner, Trinity Church, Reverend James, and to the many individuals and community organizations that have supported our work, including Haverhill Kiwanis and Rotary Clubs, Pentucket Bank, Haverhill Bank, and the Maddox Family Foundation, as well as too many individual donors and volunteers to name. I'm also pleased that our board members are here: Andy Vargas, Suzanne Rogers, Anissa Aloro, Shirley Connolly, and Juliet Nagel. It's so wonderful. And Carol Wilson. It's so great to have all of our board members here. Marigold Montessori really is the result of the community joining together to support our youngest citizens. And so now I'd like to introduce some of the students that have benefited from your support. Led in song by Dr. Janet King, the music director at Trinity here, who has also been doing chorus with our group.
I got peace like a river. I got peace like a river. I got peace like a river in my soul. I got peace like a river. I got peace like a river. I got peace like a river in my soul. I got joy like a fountain. I got joy like a fountain. I got joy like a fountain in my soul. I got joy like a fountain. I got joy like a fountain. I got joy like a fountain in my soul. I got love like an ocean. I got love like an ocean. I got love like an ocean in my soul. I got love like an ocean. I got love like an ocean. I got love like an ocean in my soul.
And now they are going to sing one last song that is actually a special song made for our school.
Montessori is for me. I learn grace and courtesy in an early Wildflower School. Beads and red rods are our tools. In the quiet of our room, marigolds can grow and bloom.
Thank you. I now have the pleasure of introducing Kamba, who is the LG Career Development Professor of Media Arts and Sciences and the Director of Social Computing Group at MIT Media Lab. His research focuses on social computing and information management. From 2003 to 2007, Sepp was head of personalization at Google. Prior to Google, he was founder and CEO of Caltix, a personalized search company that was acquired by Google in 2003. He has been a consulting professor at the Institute for Computational and Mathematical Engineering at Stanford University. Sepp is also the author of 2 books and over 40 technical publications and patents in the fields of search and social computing. He is on the technical advisory boards of several companies, and his artwork has been exhibited at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, and the National Museum of Contemporary Art in Athens. Sepp received his PhD in scientific computing and computational mathematics from Stanford University and an AB in chemistry from Princeton University. But of special importance today, Sepp is also the founder of the Wildflower Network of Montessori Schools, and we are honored to have him join us for this special occasion.
Thank you, and it's a real honor to be here today in Haverhill. I'm so proud to see the children here and what the community and Janet and Linda have done. I want to tell a little story about how Wildflower got started, and then I'll talk a little bit about the values of Wildflower, and then I have a message for the children. We were living in San Francisco, and my wife and I and a young child moved to Cambridge about 4 years ago now. And my wife, Angie, put me in charge of finding a school for our son. So I went around and I looked at a lot of schools, and I was really struck by the Montessori schools. I found the children to be so peaceful, so independent, so interdependent. It made me realize the capacity and capability of children. And I knew I had to learn more. And so I said, I'm going to learn as much about Montessori as I can. And so I got every book that I could find and read them all. And then I started taking our son to a parent-child Montessori class. And I just grew in my appreciation for Montessori. And I came back home to my wife and I said, I've decided what we're going to do for school. And she said, what? I said, I'm going to start a school. And she said, you're taking this assignment too far. And the school was called Wildflower Montessori School. It's a shopfront single classroom Montessori school where the teachers are also the administrators. And it involves parent education and the community, so we could, us as parents, could continue to learn about Montessori. And it's also a lab school where we continue to push forward the science of Montessori beyond Marie Montessori's day. There was a lot of interest in the school when we started, and I didn't want to get into the business of starting lots of schools. And so we open sourced the model and helped other people to start schools. And I was introduced to Janet about a year ago, and I was really struck by the passion she has for both making the lives of children and families better, and also for her commitment to Haverhill as a city, to continue to make Haverhill a better place. And I loved it, and I said, however I can support Janet and her mission, it is my pleasure to do so. And it has been such a pleasure to work with Janet and Linda over the past several months. And that brings us here today. And so I want to just read the speech that I gave when on the opening night of the first school, of Wildflower Montessori School, because I find it just as relevant today and just as relevant in this context as it was 2.5 years ago when we started Wildflower. So I'll start there. There's this wonderful quote by Frank Lloyd Wright where he says, "I never design a single house without envisioning the destruction of the entire social order." And while that was a kind of the kind of bombastic quote that Frank Lloyd Wright would say, there's an important truth to it, which is that it's useful to have a vision for the world, even when you're designing something so small as a house. Because the house will not only become part of the world, it will also affect the world. So I'd like to talk about the school, but I'd like to begin by talking about the world. And I'd like to start with a little personal story. Early in my time in graduate school, I went on a 7-day hike in the Ansel Adams Wilderness, right outside of Yosemite. I remember on the 3rd day, the woods opened up to an alpine meadow, and it was breathtaking. The meadow was covered with wildflowers and butterflies. The birds were singing. There was a family of deer on one end and a crystal blue pond on the other end, and a big sky and mountains in the background. And I remember having this wonderful feeling come over me, a feeling that was tinged with a little bit of sadness. You see, at the time I was living across the street from a strip mall with a big parking lot. And so I saw this vision of this beautiful world that was possible. And there was a gap between that and the world that we had built. And really, I saw that day as a metaphor for something that I've been feeling for a long time. I see the problems that we face in the world, our wholesale degradation of the environment, a perpetual state of warfare, and a system that leaves 14,000 people living in poverty in our city alone. And I can't help but imagine a more beautiful, a more peaceful world. And if there's one wish that I have for Dario, it is that he grows up in such a world. And when I think about the problems that I described, warfare, inequality, pollution, I feel that they're all related to one another, and that they're symptoms of a deeper illness. And it's difficult for me to describe that deeper illness, but I think I can do a better job of describing its opposite. A number of biologists that I respect the most say that the world is best described as a single organism. No individual or species can live in isolation, in the same way that no cell in my body can live in isolation. And I believe this to be true, and I believe that this truth has broad implications. It means that I'm not separate from you, any more than my right hand is separate from my left hand. And I believe that a society that acts according to this truth will understand that any aggression is self-aggression, that any destruction is self-destruction. A society that acts according to this truth will understand that healing others is healing oneself, and helping the children of others helps one's own children. Which brings me to Wildflower. I'd like to start talking about Wildflower by stating something obvious, that every institution has values. This is true especially for those institutions that don't say they have values. An institution that doesn't put its values front and center ends up slipping to lowest common denominator values, giving primacy to those things that are most easily measurable, like money, or position in hierarchy, or rankings, or grades. At Wildflower, the value that we hold most dearly is that everything and everyone is connected. So we will practice this value in all the little things. We will not meet our children's misbehavior with punishment. We will lead our children not by coercion, but by tapping into their natural inclinations to be peaceful and curious and good. We will do the same for the adults, not creating a hierarchy in the school staff, but rather creating an environment where teachers operate as peers and co-leaders. We will seek to serve and support all segments of the community, including and importantly, those most underserved by the traditional social system. And we will never see other schools as the competition, but rather seek to help all children by publishing our research and open sourcing our materials, and by helping other families to create schools like Wildflower. There will be times that it is difficult to do these things, and we will welcome these times as a way to practice our values. Because if our children see us striving to help one another and others, day in and day out, over the next 3 years, they will understand in a deep way that everything is connected. And they will develop the compassion and courage that arises with that understanding. And for me, that's much more important than teaching long division, although we'll teach them that too. In college, I was a chemistry major, and one of the things that fascinated me most was the process of crystallization. You could put just one tiny drop of solute in a large amount of liquid, and it would start a reaction that would eventually encompass the whole. And sometimes, in my most euphoric moment, I feel like the great problems of the world don't need grand solution, that a small drop of the right thing can propagate. And I don't know if this is true, but I owe it to our children to trust. And I'd like to close with a message to you, the children of Marigold Montessori. I am so proud of you. You have peace, you have joy, and you have love in your soul. And you don't realize now how much peace, love, and joy it brings to our soul. So thank you for bringing this peace, love, and joy to us. Thank you.
Okay, and so now it's time for the ceremonial ribbon cutting. And I'm hoping we have big scissors and a ribbon there.
3, 2, 1.
Pretty good. Good job.
This ribbon cutting marks the end of our first full school year and the beginning of a connection for Marigold Montessori with the Wildflower network of Montessori schools. We hope this connection will draw positive attention to our school and to our city so that together we can better serve our youngest citizens and their families. Marigold Montessori is the result of a true community effort, and the school and its students need your support to continue this important work. A little over 1/3 of our students pay full tuition. Roughly 1/3 receive state tuition vouchers, and another 1/3 receive scholarship funding. Around half of these are on the waiting list for a state tuition voucher. One of our school's goals is to enroll students from a broad variety of cultural and economic backgrounds. We encourage anyone with young children to contact us about enrollment. We have openings for the fall. During our first year, we have been fortunate to have generous donors provide scholarship funding for disadvantaged families. Marigold Montessori School needs community support to continue to provide access to our high-quality Montessori program for a diverse group of students. During these critical formative years, quality early childhood education should be available to all children, not just those who have the ability to pay. Some of our families are waiting to hear if scholarship money is available so their children can continue in our program for the upcoming year. Your support will help our youngest children build a strong foundation to ensure later success for these children and for our community. The average low-income family needs assistance of about $30 or $40 per week, or $1,500 to $2,000 per year, to be able to afford to enroll their child in our school. Please consider making a donation towards our scholarship fund at www.marigoldmontessori.org. If you prefer to help in another way, please see our wish list on the Support Us tab of our website. Thank you for your support.